Hey, I'm Cyclon, and today we take a look at our Power Siphon Int Stacking Deadeye. So, to give it numbers in the terms of clear, bossing, and survivability, it is very good in all of them. A clear is a straight up 10 out of 10. It clears your whole screen and further. Super good. In the terms of bossing, it can only be a 9.5 or rather 9 out of 10 because sometimes you misplace your Hydrosphere and suddenly do no damage, and it is not a build that just, at least on reasonable budget levels, says, "Oop, that boss is dead, and now that boss is dead," and it doesn't instantly kill bosses, basically. Survivability, lastly, it is super good. We have several defensive layers covering ES on hit, leech, evasion rating, and manual dodging, on top of a pretty good energy shield pool, making it the survivability of, I would say, 9 to 9.5. Basically, it only dies to really stupid things or really hard content. And with stupid things, I mean like standing in explosions or in a horde of enemies and seeing how long you survive. It even is a pretty good darkness farmer because of the ES on hit. Our three choices I already mentioned for the Ascendancy is the Deadeye. We chosen the Deadeye for the utility it gives us and the insane amount of damage it gives us for a low investment level. There are other variants like Scion, Occultist, or maybe even Berserker I've seen. While Scion is really good for high investment level and Occultist is okay for generic content. Occultist really doesn't give a lot of damage. It's just a nicer bit of survivability, a nice bit of utility, and a tiny bit of damage. But Deadeye, and Berserker is also for super min-max. Deadeye is super good for damage on low budget. Our survivability we cover with other things, so I focused mainly on damage and utility to apply that damage. We have Gathering Winds for Tailwind. Free Tailwind, awesome. Attack speed is really good because we don't have a lot of attack speed on this build. As we mainly scale intelligence, there is not a lot of attack speed to gain. We have Focal Point, increasing effect of our Snipers Mark, and which we can almost abuse to deal even more crazy damage. We use Far Shot for up to 60% more damage if the enemy is at the edge of our screen. And lastly, we use Endless Munition for more single target damage and even better clear, because with that we don't need GMP in our kinetic blast. Instead, we can use Fork support. Our tree itself, we do want to have masteries. We want the Reservation Mastery, Mana Reservation. We want the Caster Mastery, Spell Damage for Int, because we can convert that to attack damage with Int. We want increased crit chance against shocked enemies and crit multi against unique enemies, as well as cannot be shocked while having maximum power charges. And lastly, for our Attribute Mastery, there are two options. Always check at your current investment level which one is better. Either flat intelligence per mastery's passive skills, or increased intelligence. And lastly, with our wand mastery, we want I at least like to have a wand attack with a fired additional projectile always. And then I like to have power charge on crit with wands, so we don't have to use power siphon doing mapping to gain power charges. And we can, based on if we need it, on our item choices, we can have increased in reductions to spell damage applied to our wand attacks. And intelligence is added to accuracy rating with wands. Both are based on other setup, are quite good. For the other stuff, we want some wand nodes, but I guess I start from the beginning. We convert our early dexterity node to intelligence with a fertile mind. We use charisma for our reservation, ballistics for 1.20 intelligence, so that is pretty good. Another flat intelligence from thiefcraft. We want the jewel socket here for an 8 passive large cluster jewel, preferable with veteran defender and martial prowess in the front. I found it on the combination with vicious skewering. We just ignore that one. And more jewel sockets. We want another jewel socket for our Watcher's Eye or any jewel by the meta here. Watcher's Eye we want ES on hit, which is by many people called instant leech. It helps us really nicely to kind of gain the initial ES gain until our leech kicks in, and we leech the rest back up when we are getting hit, because we remove leech still on full life. Full ES. We want another power charge here. We take Soul Thief for an easy ES and ES on kill. Also we can pick up Ghost Dance for some ES recovery whenever we get hit. For Ghost Weaver, I recommend only picking it up once you have Corrupted Blood immunity. Until then, use Wicked Ward so you can utilize Wall Discipline when you need instant ES regain. Once you have Ghost Weaver, Wall Discipline does not affect you anymore. Next, we want Arcane Sanctuary for some spell damage while having a shield, and Whispers of Doom for an additional curse, which will be elemental weakness on hit. Also CI, because we say fuck chaos damage. We don't care that our life is 1, with that we are immune to chaos damage, and we have all the ES on the world to cover our lightning and physical damage. Next, arcing blows for some lightning penetration and lightning damage. We want the whole wheel for the wand, except those 3 trouble nodes: Fusillade, Disintegration and Elder Power. We also want to have Throat Seeker for some crit multi, and Wand Slinger for some damage and attack speed with wands. Prodigal Perfection gives you the maximum effect once you have 2k mana, which I do have at level 96. Up to them you're only close below it, so this one gives you up to 40% percentage damage, which again you convert to attack damage. We of course want Intelligence, another jewel socket, another power charge. We want more from our power charges, so we take Disciple of the Forbidden and the nodes leading to it. We get a bit of ES on in Unnatural Calm, and lastly more attack damage and elemental damage, attack speed and elemental damage with Prison Reef, and one large cluster. That large cluster preferable is a 12 passive cluster, so we have more points for our split personalities. But if it's too pricey, just either take one, either place this one up there, or get any cheaper one as a secondary cluster. Here we want increased effect, intelligence and attributes if preferable. Even ES would be fine, but there just go based on your budget. Would you please just show me what it can do? Sorry for the inconvenience. I guess a small note. Attributes, intelligence, and spell damage. It doesn't have to be spell damage, by the way. You can also get increased damage while holding a shield, or damage with wands. Lastly, 2 split personalities, one with dexterity and intelligence, and the other one with intelligence and evasion rating. This gives us a bit of flat evasion, which we then can convert with more percentage to even more evasion rating. For our skills, we want a 6-link power siphon setup for bossing. I'm using an anomalous power siphon that is level 21 and has 20 or more quality to fire 9 projectiles instead of 7. You can also use a 2120 power siphon or wall power siphon. Either is fine, it will just have a bit damage, it barely any difference. I just decided for a bit more maximum damage instead for a bit less average damage with Anomalous. We are using Trinity, which we are enabling by using Call of the Brotherhood. Also we are using increased crit damage support and barrage support, on top of Awakened Elemental damage and Awakened Lightning damage. Flat Lightning is really one of the biggest sources we can get. We have a lot of crit multi, and we have a lot of percentage damage and a bit of more damage, but we barely have any flat damage. So any source of flat is huge. And for our clear, we are using our kinetic blast, which can be divergent if you're using, like me, fork, or if you rather use GMP, instead use an anomalous kinetic blast for base pierce, and then we have GMP or awakened GMP instead of fork for applying the damage. I like to use fork. It feels really satisfying with an awakened fork splitting twice. So we have 4 base projectiles each split, so we have 8 projectiles each split again, adding a total of 16 projectiles, so that are 4 hits plus 8 hits, 12 plus 16 hits, at 28 enemies that we are hitting, and each hit, as it says on Kinetic Blast, will cause a series of small explosions. So each hit will cause 4 explosions, which are ours. What did we say? 28 times 4 are 80. 112 explosions total, if I can do math, I assume. It can be really insane for clear. Also, we are using a Spellslinger setup. Here is important, a 21 Spellslinger is better than a 20 because it gives us 1 less reservation override percentage. Instead of 25% mana, it's 24. Also, we use Hydrosphere on level 1, so we don't die to elemental damage on this. On the elemental reflect map, we are immune otherwise with a level 5 awakened elemental damage support. And we use Snipers Mark, combining Snipers Mark, Hydrosphere, and Branching Cascade. More than doubles our damage on average. I think it's times 3 to times 5. But that is just an assumption based on what I've seen. I have no numbers to support my assumption. Lastly, we use an onslaught support here, anomalous for increased duration. So for bosses, we have almost 100% onslaught uptime for more attack speed. And for map clear, it's sometimes the Hydrosphere kills a steal on an enemy from our kinetic blast, which gives us a bit of onslaught during the map. It is nice until you can afford onslaught on your boots, which then would be a more consistent onslaught during mapping. For our mobility, we use shield charge with faster attacks, and we use flame dash to cover to get over gaps or stairs or walls or whatever. And lastly, our aura setup. Or, well, not lastly, we still have tiers, but that will come in a moment. We are using an enlightened tier and a precision on pretty much any level you can afford with mana. I think you need about 100 to 120 mana to not run out of mana while using a mana flask, which is why I could have leveled it a bit further, but I really didn't care. I think it was high enough. Accuracy rating is kept. And a bit of more crit would be okay, but I already have about 60% crit chance per hit, which is okay enough. Next we are using a Grace. Here you can use a 21 Wall Grace, 20 Wall Grace, or alternate quality. It doesn't really matter. It based on preferences or what you want. And then Discipline, again, use alternate quality. Wall Discipline is no good anymore once you have Ghost Reaver. And lastly, we are using a cast when damage taken setup with a level 3 Immortal Call. And we are using a Sigil of Power, which gives us a crazy amount of Flat Lightning. Again, Flat Lightning is insane for us. I really recommend using that over Frost Shield, which you might have seen in my compilation of boss kills. That being said, those are the skills. And now the items. For the items, we do want to use an Awakening Orbed Immune Wand with spell damage per intelligence and lightning damage to attacks with this weapon per intelligence. And afterwards you can use that, or you can improve further on it. I've left some information in the notes in the path of building. For our offhand, we are using a Series Reflection, Curse Effect great, Curse Immunity super great, all resistances even better. Flat Intelligence, amazing, and then it gives a ton of ES and Evasion rating, which we increase with some notables on the tree, like Veteran Defender. for 60% increased defenses. Absolute amazing shield, best in slot outside of the most min-maxed versions. On the helmet, we want a Crown of Ice with the enchantment Power Siphon fires 2 additional projectiles. You can corrupt it, hopefully to get a power charge or to get mana reservation multiplier, which is great but will drive the cost up by quite a bit. Lastly, the other two uniques we have is the Call of the Brotherhood, enable us using Trinity. You don't need the percent intelligence implicit, it improves the damage on survivability of course, but it's not needed. And we want a Shaper's Touch with Elemental Weakness Curse on hit, which enables us to pretty much apply Elemental Weakness on the whole screen whenever we attack. And it gives us an amazing amount of increased evasion rating and accuracy rating, while also giving us a bit of mana, which helps us to get to our 2k mana pool. It is really, really good gloves, and outside of the most min-max versions, I would not skip out of this. Also, the survivability it gives us is amazing. It really enables you with Grace to survive a lot of stuff. Right now, I'm sitting at, if I take a look, at 30k evasion rating, with Flask is 45. For our rares, we want boots with resistances and intelligence, movement speed, a preferable energy shield based, but there whatever goes. Later on you can improve it with Tailwind Elusive Onslaught boots in any combination based on if you need Tailwind or Deadeye. And preferable higher intelligence that is not crafted. And we really want the enchantment 1 to 160 lightning damage if you haven't killed recently. It really improves the damage a lot for bosses. Our ring, basically resistance filling ring with intelligence. And then I also crafted flat lightning and I have an unveil on it with cold and lightning damage. But then again, that needs a suffix can't be changed. Unveil orb, veiled chaos orb, and be a bit lucky, so that can get pricey quick. Our amulet, you can either use an Astramentus with the Nightmare Vengeance Cascade and attribute modifier quality, or you can use a Lapis if you still need resistances. Here we can craft flat lightning to attacks, have T2 or better all attributes and intelligence, on top of some resistances, and later on you want increase attributes, increase intelligence amulet, that also preferable has the implicit increased damage with increased spell damage for intelligence again. That would make it, I think it's increased damage for intelligence and would make it even greater, but also absolutely pricey. And now for the body armor, really just a Shaper or Crusader base with intelligence, percent intelligence, and a good amount of ES. I think you want to aim for about 500 ES and at least a double T2 intelligence. I have T3, T3, which was enough, but the T3 of shaping is actually a T2. I don't know why it says T3. And lastly, the belt, percent intelligence belt with Essence of Spitewold for anything good. In my case, T2 armor, T2 ES, and open suffix for fire and lightning resistance enables me to even out fire, lightning, and cold rest, so I can use a Wise Oath on bosses. For the other flask, we want to use a Mana Flask, a Quicksilver Flask, a Jade Flask, a Quartz Flask, and a Diamond Flask. For bosses, you can either swap out the Quartz or the Quicksilver based on the boss if you need, and the suffixes. On suffixes, we want anti-burning and anti-corrupted blood, as well as evasion rating and attack speed. I think that is the best combination we can get. On the Mana Flask, it is honestly whatever, as long as it doesn't reduce the effect of it. And I think that are the items. I already went over the jewels earlier while I went over the passive tree. For leveling, I leveled with Lightning Strike directly, which was a great mistake, so I recommend to instead level with Frostblade and Spectral Helix. I left passive trees and nodes in the skills and passive tree section, and once you reach, what was the level? Once you reach level 33 and have 97 refund points and a few items, you can start being an Int Stacker, but if you don't have any issues with leveling with other skills, I recommend continuing with that until you can equip all your Int Stacker items, and maybe even some of the more pricey upgrades. And once you have those, have fun being an Int Stacker. It is absolutely amazing. For budget level, I think this is a fairly cheap variant of the Int Stacker. Outside of a really good body armor and a large cluster jewel, can be quite cheap. Of course, it can quickly get expensive, but early on, I think with this setup, you could do with 20 to 30 exalts, ignoring the headhunter, of course. You could get started if you self-craft some stuff or snipe some stuff for cheap. And I think that's really all there is able to mention on this build. Once you have like 1.2k intelligence and above, it starts to get better. Every upgrade is feelable. I had a lot of fun with this build and might push it even further, but that is then getting beyond the point of being reasonable pricing, because you need huge investment just to get a bit more damage out of this after the point I am currently at. Like item upgrades I'm looking at 100x or more. It's just really crazy. But again, it was a fun build. It is a fun build. I had super fun farming Nemesis with it, farming Legion with it. I might just go for it next league again a bit earlier that time to be able to actually afford some stuff, and who knows how the league will turn out. All that being said, I hope this was informative, and I hope I could help somebody out with a cheap Int Stacker. And if you have tried out the build and you enjoyed it, I would be really great if you could come back and leave a comment saying your thoughts on the Int Stacker. And yeah, I think that's all what I wanted to say. Have a wonderful day.